Welcome back to the Backyard Professor Chess videos, the 4th of July tactical fireworks celebration with some chess games. The game I want to show you now is played by Alexander Alekin against an opponent called M. Felt. Now, the interesting story behind this is it was played in 1916 during World War I. The World War had interrupted absolutely everything because the politicians keep messing up in the world, and Alekin lived through the First World War, right? He was an up and rising star, but the war destroyed his family. His father died in one of the prison camps. His mother disappeared. He lost both his parents. He was a young kid. His brother Alexei and his sister survived, but they were separated by vast distances. Alekin mentions that during the war, at one point he was so sick and ill, and it was a horrible time to be living in Europe and Russia, that he was sick in bed for over a month and he just couldn't move. And it was during this time that he was requesting people to play chess with him, but he played blindfold chess. He didn't even have to look at the board to play, and he played numerous games all at the same time, simultaneous blindfold games, and this is one of those games. Now, M. Felt, they say, was a pseudonym for one of the military hospital workers that was taking care of Alekin during his illness, right? And he's 24 years old. This was at Tarnopol in September 1916. He's 24 years old. This is a simultaneous blindfold exhibition game. And the one reason I want to show you this game, I mean, there are numerous ones, but one of the reasons is simply because of one of his comments that I just howled with laughter over, and then only through playing it like the 5th or 6th time did it dawn on me, he was right. And the reason why his comment was right. Let's take a look. I already played it wrong. Sorry. His opponent played pawn king 3. Now this is the old annotation. Sorry. This is out of his best books or best games of chess. 300 of his best games. 1908 to 1937. Absolute treasure trove of Alekin chess. Nothing like it on the planet. Maybe Tao's book, which I still have not gotten yet, but I need to. Okay, knight to queen, bishop 3. Remember, Alekin is playing multiple opponents while he is sick, laying in bed without looking at any chessboard. Right? Yeah, you think you bad? This kid was bad. He was something else, man. Oh, grief. I can't even hardly play while I'm looking at one board, let alone not looking at 5 or 6 at the same time, playing with my memory while I'm sick in bed, immobile for a month. Just understand the context of that while he plays this game. Just fantastic mental powers in this guy. This is quite remarkable. Okay, now watch. This is so funny. Okay, we're in the opening, and the center is basic, and so Alekin's going to maneuver so that, and he says the more usual move is the other knight to bishop 3, right? But he said what I was doing here, and this is without the chessboard. I know I'm making a big deal about that, but he said, what I want to do here is prevent the pawn to queen bishop 4 move. He doesn't want his pawn in the center challenged from the queen bishop pawn, right? And so he said, that justifies me making this second move. Right? That, you know, it's a nice theory. So his opponent goes pawn, king, bishop 4 instead. And he says, this is a weakening of the center, which will ultimately prove fatal. Very remarkable insight for a 24-year-old. He said this was the better move. And really, truly, he's not wrong. He was so deep into chess, he understood that he needed that. He needed what his opponent needed. And the reason why this was the better move, again, in some advanced chess ideas, Alekhine is playing for the squares. And you go, what do you mean by that? I mean, this move would have helped his opponent control the e5 square, the pawn and the knight, because his pawn is fighting for the e5 square. Yeah? Just see that. Because it makes sense of Alekhine's comments. The one that I laughed at originally, and after I played through this a few times, I realized, holy cow, this guy was deep. He was very, very profoundly powerful in his mind in order to help Alekhine keep control of this. That move could have helped take away his influence for the e5 square, yeah? So he wants to prevent that. Rather than doing it with a silly, stupid-looking move like that, say, right? That could have possibly helped prevent it, but rather than doing it that way and goofing up his queenside pawns, he did that instead. This stops that, which helps him strengthen this. It's kind of interesting how that works, right? So he said the next move this guy did, pawn, king, bishop 4, fatally weakens his center. How so? Now that the pawn is gone, of black, and now that the pawn moves forward, with every forward movement of your pawn, you leave behind weak squares. Now this hole, the one that Alekhine wants, is his to take. He can put a piece there and never be challenged by a pawn. It will remain there until it is exchanged with a piece which will weaken the opponent's army. And if a knight can get into that hole, that's on the 5th rank. That means the knight will dominate the bishops. The knight will be stronger than bishops. Just letting you, giving you an ultimate understanding. Knight, knight, 5, and he gives an exclamation point. A good move. Because there's no question where Alekhine is going. He's going to king 5. That's where he wants that knight to be. So, and because of the pawn move weakening that square, Alekhine immediately pounces on that and says, I'm going to take that square right now. I'm not going to wait until later in the game. This is the entire reason for every move I make is to dominate that square. Yeah? Very Jeremy Silman-ish, because that is how Silman says to play. He says you open to create a weakness, which Alekhine did. Once you create the weakness, you attack it like crazy. Or you possess it for yourself. A weakness in your opponent's camp, which is a strength for your own. That's how Silman plays. So bishop, king 2, hitting the knight again. And knight, knight 5 to bishop 3. And now pawn, bishop 3. And here Alekhine says, Just look. I can't help it. I still laugh. This audacious young 24-year-old magnificent chess genius says, "Oh, that's a lost tempo." Another bad move by my opponent, a lost tempo. Now, look at the board. Alekin is playing the white pieces. His opponent is better developed than him. He certainly has a stronger center than him, but his opponent is the one that loses the tempo, and Alekin's knight has been bouncing absolutely all over the place, and it's the only piece out there, and yet it's his opponent who is losing tempos? That is almost audacious. But watch. Here is what I still get a kick. A lost tempo. And he moves his knight again. That's like 5 knight moves now. 4 or 5 moves with the same piece in the very opening. Nothing else has moved at all. And he's criticizing his opponent for making lousy moves and lost tempos, and he's only got 1 piece on the board. And look at that piece. That piece is the king of this chessboard. And that is what makes his comment so magnificently true. His opponent has been losing tempo, and Alekin is ahead. He is behind in development, which is so ironic, and yet he is winning. I mean, it doesn't get more ironic and better than that, does it? Look at that knight. I know you non-chess players are going to think I'm just a complete loon. And basically, I probably am, but that's beautiful. There is no other way to describe this, you guys. Unbelievably. And he's not looking at the chessboard, and he's playing several other games. And he can do this. His knight's been hopping on. You go ahead and try that without looking at the board. You move your knight 4 or 5 times and see if you can get it in that kind of a position and recognize that it is the dominant square on the whole board. You go ahead and try that. Absolutely staggering. Anyway, I'm sorry to elaborate on that, but I mean, that was fun, but let's watch the rest of the game. The rest of the game is going to take your breath away for you who love chess. For the rest of you, well, too bad you're not going to enjoy this like we will, but it's okay. It's okay. We forgive you. It's not a big deal. Knight to King 5. Wow. So, now, Phil Castles, yeah. We saw what happened the last video in this 4th of July celebration with Tall and his opponent not castling. Tall just went right up the gut and trounced him. Alekin is right in the center, and he's getting ready to do the same thing, but he's not looking. This is beautiful. Now knight. Yeah, the king knight to bishop 3. I got to make sure I get this right. Okay, now the pawn to queen knight 3. Notice his opponent continues making pawn moves. Now I know this is 1916, yes. From our perspective, hindsight, you know, we get 2020. We have 2020 vision. The lead in development and the positional, well, I mean, Yes, he's got all the squares covered with pawns. Alec owns the center, though. That is what that knight is vastly superior to that pawn, that pawn, that pawn, that pawn, that bishop, and that knight. And that's what's so shocking about it, is Alec has already won the game. I'm honestly not kidding. He's doing a blindfold, and the game is already over. His opponent just doesn't know it, but Alec does. That's the key. Wow. Let's watch and see if you agree. Now watch how fast Alec does something. Bishop Knight 2, he'll fianchetto. Excellent. Watch how absolutely fast, and he's doing this blindfold. Knight 2, Bishop 3, and Bishop, Bishop 4, and Queen, Knight, Queen 2, and Queen, King 2, and Pawn, Bishop 4. Look how fast Alec has not only caught up, but exceeded his opponent in developing and having raw, coordinated power, all spearheaded by the knight. That is just wonderful to see that it can happen in our games if we understand. He spent, and technically this isn't the way to do it, but this is 1916. He spent the first 8 moves to get that knight in the winning position based on strategic errors of his opponent leaving a hole here. And then from there on, he just owns him. Now he is ahead of development. And he says here now the knight to bishop 1 was absolutely essential. And because of that, he is now able to get a brilliant finish. And it is. You go, there is no way on God's green earth I would have ever even looked at that move. It's just not going to happen. Here this 24-year-old playing blindfold, I'm not going to stop emphasizing that because I can't do this when I have a chessboard in front of me and an analysis chessboard on the side working through the variations. I can't find that kind of a move. That is utterly, that gives you goosebumps. That is breathtaking. How can you even think so genius like this? And it's the same night that he's moved 8 times. And now he puts it there and you go, are you kidding me? Come on. That can't possibly be the beginning of a brilliant combination. But it really is. The threat now, this is the weak square, of course, the f7. And in the beginning of the game, the 2 weak squares is the f7 for the black and the f2 for the white. That's why they say don't ever move the f-pawn in the opening. And that was another thing that his opponent did erroneously. He not only moved his f-pawn twice, losing 2 tempo, he pushed it too far and left a hole, with which, based on that fatal error of his opponent, Alec was able to spearhead the attack in the center, and from that point he launched into the combination, and now because of that weakness, the threat now is queen takes pawn. And you go, how can you possibly even Think that's why I suck and he was great. Because I can't even, I couldn't have possibly seen that. That is simply, where was that queen? I hope she was there. That is simply staggering. That is unbelievably incredible to me. It's one reason why I love playing through Alekin's games. So, the king takes the knight, and the queen takes the pawn check. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. I know what you're thinking. Carrie, you've missed something somewhere. Because that is the single dumbest thing I've ever seen in a chess game. Why would you just give him the queen and the knight? All he has to do is take the queen, right? Wrong. He can't take the queen. He's doing this without looking at the chessboard, you guys. He knows the influence and the effect of every single piece and how they're arranged of his and his opponents, so that he knows is perfectly fine. This is not a blunder. He took the pawn with the queen, and he knows that the king, or no other piece, can take the queen. How? How? Why? Because if the king takes the queen, which, of course you would do, okay, it's a free queen. What are you doing, Alexander? You blew it. You gave me your queen. Then knight goes knight 5, checkmate. I just enjoy this for a quick second. Here's to my favorite, Alexander Alekin, man. Happy 4th of July. That's mind-boggling. That's incredible. A toast to one of my chess heroes, man. He knew that without even looking at the board. His mind was so well developed, he knew that that was the effect. So instead, the king bumped to knight 3. Oh, whoops. Oh, don't tell me where was this? Yeah, it was right there. Sorry, don't put it on the wrong one, you moron. And then from here, he announced mate in 2. And he was playing several other games, probably 3 or 4 more other ones, all of them blindfold, by the way, while he was sick in bed during the First World War for a month. And this was, he said, from here there's a mate in 2. He knew the ramifications of the pieces. And the mate is pawn knight 4. And the bishop will come to king 5. And then knight rook 4 mate. He knew the ramification in his mind. Is that not incredible? And then you might ask, well, okay, hold on though. I mean, he said that the king would go to here if you pressed your pawn, right? So I got looking at this a little bit, and I said, well, wait a minute. What if instead the bishop just took the knight? Instead of stopping here, what if the bishop just took the knight? Then you've got bishop take f5 checkmate. So it didn't matter what his opponent did. Alekin had him in checkmate in 2 moves. So, I mean, sincerely, that is truly one of the unique games in chess history. It really is. Considering the historical circumstances and the extreme hunger and cold in the winter of 1916, and being sick in a dumpy hospital with hardly any care for a month at a time, playing blindfold chess. This is a gem of a fireworks display for chess. And so I'm thrilled to be able to show you that fantastic game of Alexander Alekin. So in the meantime, remember, happy happy 4th of July, you guys. Let's celebrate safely, have fun, eat some good food. We're fortunate that we still have some good food to eat. Not everyone in the world has good food to eat. I don't know what to do about that. I'm not in a position to be able to help a whole lot, but I do what I can. I hope you have the same approach and attitude, because we do have a social responsibility, and we need to realize there's more to the world than just me, right? And so, in other words, be good, be kind, be loving. It is not macho to be a jerk. It's much more macho and manly to be loving and caring and be of a benefit. That's where the joy comes from. I'm just saying, I've been around the block on this planet for 59 years. I think I'm getting a handle on this. I do believe I know what I'm talking about. So, and there's a lot more of that coming from me as I can. So, in the meantime, remember, I will see you in the next 4th of July tactical fireworks chess video coming up just shortly. Thanks, you guys, and stick around. We're celebrating the 4th together.